I think I'd like to start with let's start with data.
I want to go back to one of the comments you made about AI.
Of fear says we're all in on AI, learning it fast enough, they're out. And I'm just like, what did you just say?
Potential to have a workforce that is
Deliver for us right now, because first, I think it's a job better because you're already limiting yourself and my power and my earning potential. Why would I do that? I'm not going to do that.
All right, welcome back, Rebel HR community. I am so incredibly excited to have our next guest with us here. We've got Steve Cadigan. Steve, you may recall way back from episode 59, is the author of Workquake, considered a game changer for leaders and organizations on the future of work post-COVID. He famously led LinkedIn's early hypergrowth phase as its very first. You may be familiar with LinkedIn if you're in human resources, and if not, give me a call. And generally regarded future of work thought leader. So, Steve, thank you so much for coming on and spending a little bit of time.
It's great to be back, Kyle. Man, the world hasn't stood still since the last time we talked. So we got lots of territory we can cover.
We could go a lot of different directions. I remember we were kind of reminiscing about, it's been over 4 years since we first connected on this podcast. And at that time, you had a new book coming out called Workquake. It's a great book. If you have not picked it up, it's available where books are sold. We'll have a link here in the show notes. But we were talking about all sorts of things back then. How we should be human-centered in our organizations. Trying to figure out what is the future of work, what's work from home, how is technology going to play into work. And I feel like, reflecting on these last 4 years, it's almost like, first of all, a lot of your predictions have become realized. And I also feel like it's almost like we hit fast forward, because it seems like the speed and acceleration of change just continue to get faster and faster. And so I'm curious now, looking back, from the original release of Workquake, as you look at the things you wrote about, as you look at the things you're looking at now, what are some, what are some areas that you are especially curious about right now?
I mean, how could it not be the topic of artificial intelligence? And there's so many dimensions to that, but let me call out a couple, right? So I think I've moved from the book highlighting like, hey, there's a lot of acceleration of change, and the model of work, the architecture work that we've been operating with, our map, if you will, is just not compatible with that speed of change. And in human resource, anyone who's in that domain and that community knows all the tools and the resources we use are all built for a different time. And they're all rewarding long tenure, and no one's staying a long time like they used to, and so forth. But the challenge, I think, with AI is it's created an environment of fear, that the biggest narratives we're hearing are job loss, impossible, need to upskill yourself, the impossible to achieve, bridging the skill gap. And so kind of where I sit right now, and top of mind for me is, how are we having the right conversation with AI, number one, and number two, equally large and interesting and complex, is how do we think about creating winning teams when we know people are not staying as long as they used to? Like, everyone knows that. Like, we're not going to see a trend of people staying longer in organizations going forward. It's either going to, best case, flatline, worst case, continue to erode, and maybe wind us up in a situation where a lot of people have multiple employers, not just one, right? So how do I think about building something really great when I don't control, I don't own, I don't have a dedicated mind like I used to, and they're not going to be with me for a long time? How do I think about that? And that's a pretty cool puzzle, right? And anyone who's a college sports fan in America, if you want to know how to do it, just go look at what's happening in college basketball in the last 4 or 5 years, or last 10 years. Like, every great coach on the top tier teams knows their best player is going to stay for 1 year. That's it. And you know it, and going into it. So how do you think about building teams? How do you think about communicating? How do you think about a simpler offense and a simpler defense? That's super interesting to me. And that's where I'm trying to help organizations say, like, hey, if you do believe, like I do, that people are not going to stay as long, how do we think about building value in a more fluid workforce? That's a pretty cool puzzle to think about solving, right? And with the backdrop of how do we think about AI? And if we think about it the right way, I think it is, let's leverage it to understand people's skill potential more than we have, right?
Yeah. What a great, what a great analogy. I think about a simpler offense, or simpler defense, because like the base case is the talent will not be here for
Right.
the next season. Right. So it's fascinating. I mean, just reflecting on all the things you've ever heard about, college sports, and it's all about the team and building these teams, and it's a complete shift,
Yeah.
a work quake, if you
Yeah.
will, or a sports quake. I don't know.
Yeah.
You could trademark that a lot of different ways, Steve,
Yeah.
if you wanted to. But I do think as from an employer standpoint, this is real. Like, I do a lot of recruiting in the technical side of the world, engineer and skilled trade and accountants and these people that these really technical skills.
Yeah.
And the equation is honestly like, well, we either pay a little bit above market, which isn't always an awesome business decision, or you get into these inequities within your workplaces.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
You get into these inequities within your workplaces if you start doing that for your new hires, or you hire people that maybe don't meet all of the skills that you need and not have to pay as much. But I think, and I would lump myself in this, I don't know that many organizations have thought about, well, how do we change the way we work? Or how do we take a look at the actual structure of work in a way to enable us to not have to think in these terms of one-for-one replacements?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out right now, I don't know that I have the answer, is like this AI component. As I look at my organization, we're not really structured for AI either. There is a future where AI can help enable people do aspects of their job much more efficiently. But we haven't really structured our organization in order to do that.
Yeah.
Or the way that we work in order to do that. So, there's a lot there that we could explore. How are you thinking about these organizational problems as you do the work?
I think I'd like to start with let's start with data. Do you believe people are going to continue to, stay at organizations for shorter periods of time? Yes. Do you believe that the need for new skills is going to accelerate? Yes. Do you think that if you combine those two, it paints a good picture of like, okay, we need to build an organization that creates value when people aren't going to stay as long, like simpler offense, simpler defense, and we're going to have to upskill. And I will tell you, and those people who are in HR will know this, when times get tough, who's the first team that gets let go? Training and development. Okay. So that
training,
is, right? It's the L&D team. Okay. Let's get those people out. That's just a nice to have. That's such flawed thinking today. So if you put those things together, and I need new skills faster than ever before, and I got people leaving, I don't think you're going to recruit your way out of this. Right. So when I think of a new architecture, I think we're going to have to redesign work. And that's hard because everything about work has been built for, I need X number of people to produce X number of widgets, right? If you think I probably can't rely on traditional educational institutions to keep up, to fill my need. And I'm definitely not in the business of building my talent at the scale that I need it. So how am I going to solve that problem? I think what we're going to start to see, and out of necessity, is this blurring of lines between some schools and businesses where employees become teachers and mentors and recruiters on campus, and students start solving problems for companies. And that boundary becomes more permeable because no organization is equipped to grow their people fast enough. And you're not going to recruit your way out of needing new skills. And by the way, if you do recruit your way out, that means you're going to have to let a bunch of people go. And that also is cultural kryptonite, right? If you're going to have to, switch it out. Sorry. Just like, not to out any firms, but I'm going to out the firm because I thought it was just unbelievably shocking how this was revealed. The CEO of Accenture 2 weeks ago says, we're all in on AI, and our people are having to learn this stuff. And if they're not learning it fast enough, and I'm just like, what did you just say? You know? And it's like
Yeah.
you're taking no responsibility for hiring the right people and owning their development and setting them up for success. It's now entirely on them to figure this out. And AI just arrived on our shores yesterday. So thank you for being really clear on how unsupportive you are about your talent strategy. I'm not hiring you in my organization. And that
Right.
I think is indicative of how on the heels most even CEOs are about where we are with AI, right? Like, don't know.
Right.
And
Right.
second point in this one, and then I want to flip it over to you because we could go so many different ways with this. The companies and organizations I think that have an edge with AI adoption are ones that are not in conservative businesses and they have more of an experimentation culture. So I think healthcare is going to struggle. I think financial services is going to struggle because there's a lot of regulatory environment and there's not a lot of room for experimentation, right? I was just on a call with an industry, the energy industry, highly regulated, highly conservative, like all kinds of rules governing, the power companies. That kind of business model seeps into your culture, and AI is one big experiment, and you can't like, here's the playbook. And I love what Walmart did last year. Walmart went out, and I think their CHRO, Donna Morse, whose brother was the godfather of my kids that were born in Canada because she's Canadian. They went ahead and did a radical experiment. This is Walmart, okay? The biggest employer outside of the US government, United States. They gave 50,000 people a generative AI tool on their phone and they said, here. And then employees like, okay, what is it? How do we do it? When's the training class? Go, there's no training class. We understand that this has got, really powerful potential. We don't know what it is, but why don't you go try it out and see if you can use it to lead maybe a staff meeting better, or maybe you can recruit better with it, or maybe you can delight customers better with it and come up with shared best practices. And it just exploded, right? Exploded with great ideas. And that, if Walmart can do that, okay, one of the most, traditionally conservative retail organizations out there, who's also feeling a lot of pressure, obviously, from the big monster Amazon, then that's a signal, right? Like, hey, they're experimenting and good on them. But I think that's how I think about it. Like, we're really going to have to experiment more. And if you're from a place where we tell you how to use AI, that's not going to work. Like, just not going to work here. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. I love that insight. Interesting side note, and we're not sponsored by Walmart, but if you look at the digital tools that they have compared to some of the other more traditional, like old school, like previously brick and mortar big box stores, their digital tools are great. I mean, and I think that speaks to that there's an awareness or kind of a culture building that's occurred there. Honestly, we're struggling with that. So my organizational company been around for 143 years, right? Look at those experimenters, right? But we got a lot of super smart technical people that have
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
We got a lot of super smart technical people that have just a treasure trove of intelligence, that if we get them a tool or something to play with, then boy, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. And we're trying to figure that out right now. Like, honestly, we haven't figured it out, but those are the questions we're asking. My 2 cents is I want to go back to one of the comments you made about AI and kind of the context that people are seeing it in, and that right. And a lot of it, I think, goes back to this self-preservation context where people are afraid it's going to take their job, or, it's going to change their job to a point that they don't like it anymore, whatever that fear is. So I'm curious, what guidance do you have for folks like myself that maybe see the potential, but have a workforce that is fearful and skeptical of the approach, right? Or I think the reality is some people would see a tool deployment and be like, oh, you just want me to put all my knowledge in here so you can replace me.
That's right.
Right? Like, that's the reality, right? Like, that's what people will think. at time. What recommendations do you
Great,
have for us?
great
Trying to figure
question,
out
Kyle.
how do we keep
Yeah,
this
yeah, no,
positive?
great
Right?
question. So the first thing is, I think we need to have conversations. Like, let's just recognize the elephant in the room right now. This is kind of scary, right? And that's number one. I would have that with employees. I would have that with leaders first. Like, hey, where are you at with this right now? Because Brene Brown said something last week, which I think is so true. Like, hey, if you manage people today, you know people are not okay. This is a tough moment, not just because of AI, a lot of instability and unknown things in the world. So that's what I would do. Number one, like, let's talk about it. All the digital transformation work that's been done by all the major consulting firms, they'll tell you, like, hey, if you don't have the discussion first, like, why are we doing this and what's the point, then this is not going to stick. Okay. So what's in it for me? Because it's not clear for the employee what's in it for me. Second thing is, I think every talent leader first and every organization second should have an AI philosophy. Okay. And so by that, I mean, where do we stand with this thing? So here's something that Walmart did recently. All the CEOs around the world, when they have earnings, announced their earnings, we're starting to see them reveal what their talent strategy is with respect to AI. I told you what the Accenture person said. Walmart said something a little different. Walmart CEO says, I'm having a hard time imagining how every job is not going to be different because of AI, but we've made a commitment. We're going to be headcount flat for the next 3 years. Now, if I'm working for him, I'm going, oof, I'm taking a deep breath. Okay. So you're not weaponizing AI to cut costs and eliminate me. That's what I'm hearing, Now, the mixed message in there might be, hey, we're going to change out the skill mix a little bit and keep the headcount flat, and maybe you don't have the skills we need, but that's a real miss, I think. So what I would say is develop your AI philosophy as a company, and almost like putting a nutrition label on the company relative to AI. If this initiative is going to eliminate jobs, wreck the culture, or doesn't fit our cultural values and so forth, then why are we doing it? And so I love, there's a construction company in manufacturing company in Liechtenstein called Hilti. And Hilti says, we're only using AI to make our employees better. Like, that is our main focus, right? If you start coming out of the gates with, look at us, we just cut 400 customer service jobs, or UPS, we just cut 20,000, positions with AI, or Salesforce, we just cut 900. Like, who are you talking to? It's not your employees. You're talking to your shareholders, right? And how does that play out, right? And so I think that's really important. Let's think about this in a deep way and get in front of it and show some leadership, but also recognize we're all making the sausage right now. And that's the hard thing. There's no one who's leading the charge here that's, oh, there's the benchmark, because we're all trying to figure it out. But that's how I think about, like, let's have the conversations. Let's develop our own philosophy. I tell every human resource leader that'll listen to me, what is your philosophy about AI? Like, what is it? You need to know where you think it should sit in your organization. Just like, what's your HR philosophy, right? It's like, I want to use AI to make people more valuable, powerful, empowered, and have a joyful experience at work. I do not want to use it to grind my people, go more, do faster, save money. That's called focusing on the bottom. We're not talking enough about AI focusing on the top. New value, new ideas, new ways of solving problems, ways of discovering how you can apply different skills or learn things faster, right? Like, if we're really using AI, I want to learn more about Kyle, what Kyle can do for me in other ways that he might not even recognize. And that's a beautiful thing. There's an insurance company on the East Coast, Prudential Insurance Company. And I was talking to their CEO last summer, this panel we were on in London, and I was being pretty salty. I was like, I'm not impressed by leadership right now, especially insurance. You're not using AI in really creative ways. And I was being pretty cheeky. And he goes, hey, let me tell you about something we're doing over here. And I was like, okay, I'm all ears. I'm Ross Perot. I'm all ears. So he says, listen, we had a big problem that we were losing a lot of people, and we knew they probably could do something different, but we weren't really sure what it was, and they weren't sure what they could do differently. So we made an effort to say, let's discover how qualified every single one of our employees is for every job in the company. Think about that for a second. Those of you who are listening, why doesn't that exist today? It doesn't exist because we think in very myopic, oh, you're an HR person. Oh, you only fit in the HR tree. No, they could go in sales. They could go into engineering. They could go into operations. They could go so many different places. So why don't we give every employee on their first day of every job in every company the map of how qualified they are for every job in our organization? And you're anywhere from 0 to 100% qualified. And if you're 40% qualified and you want to this job in PR and you want to go to PR, here's the people you need to talk to. Here's the courses you can take, and that'll get you. Once you hit 60%, okay, now you're viable for someone that we would consider putting over there. But what that does, Kyle, is it gets people thinking about the opportunity inside, not the opportunity outside. If retaining people, which is really hard today, is something that's important to you, don't think just in their job family. Think new ways. And that's, I think, a way that we can use AI that's like, well, okay, now that's.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
That's, I think, a way that we can use AI that's like, well, okay, now you're doing additive. You're looking on the top line. You're not looking at the bottom line, And I want to hear and amplify more examples like that. If any of the listeners, if you're hearing something that's really cool like that, let's talk about it, and let's share that, because I think it's going to give us hope that, hey, or some guidance, like, hey, there's some new benchmarks that are worthy of us following, Yeah.
We'll be back after a quick break.
This episode of the Rebel HR podcast is brought to you by Human Innovation. If you're running HR out of spreadsheets, scattered docs, or sticky notes, I know that pain. I've lived it. That's why I built the complete HR strategy toolkit. It's a tech-based system with templates for onboarding, compliance, employee experience, policies, and even strategy dashboards, all built from my decades of experience in HR and as a CHRO. You can check out a short demo and grab the toolkit at hrtoolkits.kyleroad.com. Again, that's hrtoolkits.kyleroad.com. Stop reinventing the wheel and start simplifying HR. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think every HR professional listening to this right now has probably dealt with somebody saying our career development needs to be improved, or we've got talent gaps and we feel like we have internal talent and we don't know what they're qualified for. And what an amazing use case, and then a way to showcase, hey, we're using this for good, not evil, right? Like, I did laugh, the employers, not to shame employers. I get that you have shareholders, right? Like, and cutting jobs is beneficial for the bottom line. But as you think about these companies, you can't help but think like, well, what are you thinking? Who are you talking to?
Right.
Like, are you trying to drive engagement and retention by talking about how many heads you're going to reduce? Like, for me, I don't consider myself an expert, but certainly a passionate user of AI. It's not replacing my job anytime soon. If anything, it's enabling me to be more effective at my job and take lower level functions away. But the best description of AI, like a Chat GPT or a Claude or whatever you're using, came from an AI vendor we were doing a project with, and he was like, AI is like your drunk friend, right? Like, it's like, it's telling you what you want to hear. It's not always going to be super accurate, but it's going to make you feel good about it, and
I've never heard that. That's interesting.
But kind of accurate, right? Like, it's like you got to check the source. You got to make sure the data is not like hallucinated, and that's just kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
But I do think that the pace of technological improvement, the advancement in these tools just in the last few months, it will be at a point where it can do a lot of lower level, very tactical functions in a pretty exciting way at some point.
Yeah.
And my take is we got to be ready for that before this turns into like, oh my gosh, we need to cut X, Y, Z heads because our competitors are beating us because they figured this out first. I actually think that's the bigger kind of risk for companies is if you don't do something, your competitors will figure it out. And my gosh, I much rather grow top line than be so heavily focused on how do we cut the bottom line.
And once you build your confidence that you know how to build the top line, that's going to be a virtuous cycle, hopefully that perpetuates. And I think
Right.
it really is a hard time. And if we dial this down to a very visceral level, you made a comment earlier around, if I think AI is going to replace me, like, what am I going to use that for? Now, think about this. Like, that reminded me of I don't know if you were part of this at some point in your career, but the outsource to India thing that like in the early 90s. Oh yeah, we're going to outsource to India. Labor is like less than half as expensive. So then you go to your North American teams and go, hey, you need to go over to Bangalore and train all these people how to do this. And they're like, what? Why would I do that? And I think here's the rub. Human nature is a really big obstacle to what AI can deliver for us right now, because first, I think it's flawed to go to AI and say, how can I do my job better? Because you're already limiting yourself. Rather, go to AI and say, how can I solve the problem that my job is designed to solve? How can I solve that differently? Or how can I look at it differently? Let's just take recruiting, for example. It's a great example. I had a friend of mine said recently, hey, what do you think AI can be? How can we use AI to do recruiting better? Like, remove bias and all these other things that people are trying to solve. I was like, I think that's the wrong question. We need to ask recruiting, hey, I'm a recruiter. Here's what we do. Let me explain what recruiting is. How can you reimagine that how can we reimagine that with artificial intelligence? And so then AI is probably going to come back and say, okay, so recruiting is bringing in new skills, talents, and experiences in education to make your organization perform better. Yeah. So then AI is going to say, well, listen, can you tell me what education skills and experiences you have in your current organization right now? And that's when most people are going to go, not really. I can't really tell you. Let me go open up the personnel files that are crusty and have got like cobwebs on them. Started. We don't know.
Yeah.
And so then AI is going to say, you know what? It sounds like you have a skill and talent awareness problem, not a recruiting problem. Amen. And it's right. We have thought myopically about this. That's where I think AI can play. So it's like how we have these conversations. But if you go to someone and say, use AI to do your job better, it's like, excuse me, why would I upset my control of my career and my power and my earning potential? Why would I do that? I'm not going to do that, And so I'm going to smile at you and just passively resist, and make it look like I'm doing something, right? Because that's scary. And I think that's one of the big barriers we have right now is like, why would someone do that? Like, unless you promise me, if I replace myself, you've got my back. And I don't know that a lot of organizations are prepared to do that,
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I'm from the mid. We're experts at passive aggressiveness. That's literally. I can think of like almost everybody in my organization would have that exact response. They'd smile, they'd nod, they'd say, "Okay, Kyle, that's a great idea. Let me go do that," and then just absolutely go like blow it up on the back end and smile the whole way through. But I do think great example, and I think. Like intuitively, I think HR, like we already know that, right? Like
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
HR, like we already know that, right? Like, but sometimes I think one of the bigger use cases for AI is reframing and having that thought partner where you can ask it stupid questions, like questions you don't want to ask another HR professional or a peer. And it's pretty eye-opening when you start from the context of how do I do this differently, or what information do you need? And then you realize I love that example of, well, we don't really even know what our talent gaps are because we don't really know what our talent is or what those capabilities are. I mean, how many times have we been in a talent review session and think we've got it all figured out, and then we find out randomly that somebody has an advanced degree in a skill set that could be really
Japanese and it was never on their file.
Right. You're like, what?
Yeah.
You lived in Japan for 2 years during college and we have a vacant territory manager in Japan. Yeah. Why the hell haven't we, had you?
We're learning so much.
Usually it's a knowledge gap.
We're learning so much now. And you just brought up something that reminded me of a conversation I had. So I'm on the advisory board of this company called Slate Advisors, and they do micro coaching. Okay. Here's a company that started as outplacement coaching for people who are staying instead of people who are going. So can you help us with that? So they've been experimenting with AI coaches, and they found something, and this has also been discovered by a number of other organizations doing the same thing. We as humans are more comfortable being vulnerable to a bot than we are another person. And so if you're a alarmist, you could say, oh, that's the end of coaching. Bots are going to take over. But if you're, I think, a realist, you're going to say, no, no, no. As a coach, I get to the root of the real concerns and challenges you're facing faster. And I don't care if you're, comfortable sharing with the bot, not me. As long as I got that intel, I can help you more effectively. Now, so that is additive. It's complementary. You know what I'm saying? It's coexistence. And neither one is evil, AI or humans, but we're going to have to find this way of coexisting that's mutually additive. We're not going to stop AI, but I completely agree with something you said earlier, which is like, we've been basically given these foster children are called AI products, and we've got to raise them. They're ours to raise, kind of like your drunk friend. I look at it as like, we've been given these foster children and no one's raised them, and we're going to have to start raising them and set rules. And that includes ethical boundaries and a whole bunch of other stuff. And if you're sitting there waiting for someone else to do it, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to end well. And that's the thing. We're all waiting for someone else to do this, and no one is, right? So we're going to have to step up.
Right.
And that gets back to what I said earlier. You're going to have your philosophy as a company and as a talent leader. Like, where do you sit with this thing? Because this could go so many ways wrong. Let's do our best to try to get it to land as well as we can.
I love that. Yeah, and it goes back to where we started with this. Is if you have that experimentation culture, and if you don't this myopic view, that will enable you to do that, right, in a way that's more effective than burying your head in the sand and hoping that somebody else figures it out.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I view this, for me, this is not dissimilar from email, internet. It's potentially accelerated more quickly than some of these technological tools. It will reshape how we work for the rest of our career.
And that gets me to the biggest point, because your email thing just triggered me. Like, I talk to all these people. Steve, what should we do with AI? It's like, well, tell me, how's your adoption history with new technology going? How are you doing with email? Have you won back more time for yourself, or have you weaponized it to make more people far behind and feeling stressed out? Because we haven't figured that out yet, right? So let's have a real honest conversation. We have lost our relationship with technology. It is not buying more joy or beauty in our lives. Let's use AI to win it back, and realize that the greatest moments of creativity and innovative breakthroughs are not when after a week of 30 Zoom calls. It's quiet moments of reflection, right? And let's build that space and see that reflection time not as a weakness or some lame thing like your calendar's not full. What are you doing? Like, bro, I'm solving big problems here, And we got to win it back, because we've lost it. We've lost our relationship with technology, and we owe it to ourselves. We do.
I love it. It reminds me of something my CEO said to me. I don't know. It's been a while. Well, he said it a couple times, but we were having a conversation about just what you just described, like too many meetings, so much time is consumed in these conversations. And it's like, we spend more time, talking about things than actually doing. Reflects your point. And he was like, listen, we're paid to think, right? We're not paid to sit on meetings and talk. We're paid to think. And if you don't have the space to do that, if you don't give yourself the opportunity to think through these things, be creative, be reflective, be a great leader, come up with the next new big idea, you're not effective. And like you said, if technology can heal the relationship that we have, or it can heal the relationship we have with technology that's consuming us, that'd be a beautiful thing.
Right.
So,
well, that's a powerful way to sort of land this episode. What do you think?
I love it. Yeah. So, we're coming to the end of our time together. We could probably talk for another 3-4 hours, but it is a Friday afternoon, and I want to be respectful. And I'm sitting in my basement right now, and I have like 5 kids running around upstairs screaming and getting ready to go to a football game. So
great.
So Steve, thank you again for joining us. Again, if you want to learn more, connect with Steve as the first CHRO of LinkedIn. He is active on LinkedIn. And then his book, again, that is Work, Quake, It is out where books are sold. Steve, thanks for sharing some of your time and some of your knowledge with us. Really
great to be back, Kyle. Yeah, have a great weekend, brother.
Thanks. You too. Cheers. Okay.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.